Hello everyone, Dying Fujikiyo here. In today's video, I want to talk about the 7 weapons of Benkei. If you don't know, there have been many references and hints that I've covered on this channel. One of the most recent references of this Japanese famous warrior monk has been his 7 weapons that have appeared around Sanctuary Bridge. In today's video, I'm going to be trying to discuss how Benkei would have used these weapons by any historical facts or at least information around. I'm also going to be trying to figure out what type of hero is he going to be, heavy, hybrid, assassin. I'm going to try and figure out that. As well, I'm going to give you a brief description of the weapons themselves and talk about a little bit of the history behind them and some interesting cool facts about his 7 weapons. Benkei armed himself with 7 weapons and is often depicted carrying these on his back. In addition to his sword, he carries a broadaxe, also known as a masakari, used to describe versions of tools of similar structure, as well as axes in other cultures. Are sometimes employed as weapon. Many examples of this particular weapon are associated with the Sohei and the Yamabushi, who also use similar weapons that we'll talk about later. There have also been depicted samurai using this in pictures of woodblock paintings. It's described having a very large head with a cutting edge and a large scroll-shaped pin opposite it. It has a sheath covering only the edge of the blade. The next weapon that Benkei uses is a rake, but from the images it seems like Ubisoft has changed the weapon to the sasamada. The sasamada is a protective weapon in the form of a forked polearm. Its history dates back to the Edo period, 17th to the 19th century. It was used to capture criminals. Today's police and various organizations and businesses are trained in the use of this defensive weapon. Many schools in Japan are also equipped with this weapon. In Edo period Japan, samurai were in charge of the police organizations, varies of levels of samurai police, who would help non-samurai commanders use many types of non-lethal weapons in order to capture or suppress criminals for trial. The next weapon is a sickle, also known as a kama, is a traditional Japanese farming equipment similar to a build hook to replant crops, as well as employed as a weapon. It is often included in many weapon training of martial arts before being improved as a weapon. The kama was widely used throughout South Asia to cut crops, mostly rice. It is found in many shapes and farms. In South Asia, the kama could also be either used as a single half or in pairs. Both points a sharp edge of a material blade and can be used to block, trap and disarm an opponent's weapon, and is also widely seen as a shinobi's weapon. The next extremely deadly weapon and weapon that's known all across Japan, it's called the subscribe button. I know I'm pretty terrible with my jokes. I've probably already lost hundreds of subscribers because of it. Don't worry, I have no dignity left. Next weapon, wooden mallet, also known as a suchi. It is a large hammer or mallet. It is a large wooden war mallet used by the samurai class of feudal Japan. The asuchi has a staff about 6 foot, also 182.88 centimeters long. Much like the Minnow war axe, it was mainly used for door bashing. Next weapon is a saw, also known as nokojiri. Is a type of saw used in woodworking and in Japanese carpentry that cuts on the pull stroke. Unlike most European saws that cut on the push stroke, Japanese saws are the best known for the pull saws. Japanese saws do not work good on hardwoods as European saws do. They were originally intended for completely soft woods like cypress and pine. Our next weapon is an iron staff, also known as a Canabo, literally means metal stick or war club. It is a spiked or stuttered two-handed war club used in feudal Japan by samurai. The club-like weapon is created out of heavy wood or made essentially out of iron with iron spikes or studs on one end. For the wood Canabo, one or both ends could be covered with iron crepes. The Canabo type weapons came in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. though the largest ones were as tall as a man. On average, they measured roughly around 55 in length. Traditionally intended for two-handed use, though there is a one-hand use version exists, which are more usually referenced to be as a tetsubo. Also, they are being considered as mythical weapons, usually used by mythical creatures known as the Oni. Moving on to the final weapon, the Nagada is a Japanese pole arm and is one of several traditional made Japanese blades. The Nagada was originally used by the samurai class of feudal Japan, as well as Ashigaru foot soldiers and Sohei warrior monks. The Nagada is an iconic weapon of the Yamabushi type of female warriors belonging to Japanese noble society. A Nagada contains of wood or metal pole with a curved single-edged blade on the end. It is similar to the Chinese gundao or the European glaive. For some reason, Ubisoft has decided not to use the Nagada that Benkei uses, instead choosing a different weapon. It is hard to tell exactly what weapon it is, but there are two possible answers. It could either be the Jumanji Yari or the Takama Yari. How did Benkei use his weapons? Unfortunately, there was not many documentation, or any at all, really describing how he used his weapons in combat. But there are some key things that we could take away to kind of speculate on how he could use his weapons. At the age of 17, Benkei was said to have been 2 meters, 6.6 feet tall. It's also been described that he had the strength of 200 men, and he was given the ideal of him being a demon at an early childhood. There's also a story of Benkei carrying a large iron metal bell on his back on top of a hill. From this information, we could probably piece together that Benkei would be more of a heavy type of warrior, a warrior using heavy swings and being more of a brute and using his mass against his opponents, but still using skill because of his warrior monk training. Now, how will Benkei use his weapons? Now, I do have one theory that mostly he's going to only use 2 of his weapons, and the combination for that could be anything really. Now, what about the other weapons that we've been seeing across the map? Either it could just be a reference to him, or they're going to make a major part in his character. Now, we've already seen a photo or a shadow of him with the weapons on his back, so it could just be a feature for his weapons to be on his armor, and that could be it. But I think a major interesting factor that they could do with it instead is have it play a major part into his feats. For example, maybe the mallet, you could throw it at someone and it hits them, kind of like Jormungandr. Maybe you could do something like Ocelotl with the sickle. You could grab someone with the sickle and bring them towards you, like old Shinobi used to do, and Ocelotl. You could do other things like other weapons. You could maybe pin someone against the wall with the man catcher, and you could stun them and get a heavy off or a light off, or maybe it does bleed instead. You could do many things like with his feats to be all more aggressive and link into how he plays, something like how Pirate does with her feats. Like once you use it, you could continue on going. So it could be something like that. I would love to hear what you guys think. Do you believe he's going to be a heavy, a hybrid? How do you think he's going to play? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this history and speculation video about how Benkei is going to use his weapons and how Benkei may be. With that, I'll see you next time, and please don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps out the channel. I'll see you next time.